So I don't know if you know this or not, but every bishop has his own coat of arms, and on the bottom of his coat of arms is a motto that he chooses. Most of them choose something from Scripture. So Cardinal George's was Christ's glory is in his church. I think Cardinal Supich's is peace be with you. And when I was in the seminary, one of my good friends used to joke that if the church was ever foolish enough to make him a bishop, he would choose one of these subtle yet important lines that we heard in our gospel today when Jesus said, "Come, have breakfast." Took you a minute there, didn't it? It's an inviting line, and I love breakfast food, but anyway. There's a whole lot in this long gospel, and many great scripture writers and theologians have talked about what does the number of fish mean, and they've concluded that Jesus asks Peter 3 times because he denied him 3 times, so to make up for it, he asked him 3 times, "Do you love me?" and "Why wasn't the net torn?" and all these different questions that come up in our gospel. But I want to focus on St. Peter, because Peter, I think, is just the best example of what a regular disciple looks like. Now, Mary, who we start celebrating this month, a whole month dedicated to Mary, we'll crown her tomorrow. That's why she's down here. So Mary is the model disciple. Mary is the perfect disciple because she's immaculately conceived. But the rest of us ain't immaculately conceived, and so I look to Peter for more of how we live it in our daily life. So Mary's the extreme perfect model above all others, but Peter is the more practical guy, because he's like you and me, he's a sinner. And we see that perfectly in the Passion narrative, right? When Peter does deny Christ 3 times. You could say Peter was worse than Judas, because Judas only denied Jesus once. I mean, it was a big one time. But Peter, 3 different times, 3 different people said, "I don't know him." And another way, Peter, you could say, had the bigger denial or the bigger sin, because Peter was protecting his own life by saying that he didn't know Jesus, right? Judas just denied Jesus so he could get some money, but Peter was trying to save his life. Now, how they both responded after their sin is very different, and why one became our first pope, and the other, we don't really know where he is, but I'm sure God's mercy has been shown to him. See, Judas just remained isolated and alone, removed from God. Peter recognized that he did turn away from Jesus, but then he immediately reoriented himself back to finding the way, the truth, and the life. And when Christ rose on that 3rd day, Peter darted with John to the tomb to seek out the way, the truth, and the life that he had rejected just 2 days earlier. And so, friends, that's really the spiritual life in a nutshell. And that's why I think Peter is kind of the greatest example for us to look at kind of these practicalities, right? I mean, we all sin. We all turn away from God. But how we deal with that sin has to look like Peter, who, even though he recognized that what he did was wrong and that he stopped loving Jesus, he knew that Jesus didn't stop loving him. He knew that God's mercy and God's love is greater than any sin we can commit. And today, when Jesus asks Peter, "Do you love me?" he gets a little frustrated. He's like, "You know everything, right?" And Peter knows Jesus is God. He's the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning, the end. He's the end-all, be-all. So yes, Lord, of course I love you. You should know this. But see, Jesus is just, in a way, reminding Peter that he loves him too. And to say that we love Jesus means that we have to live our life in a very specific way. We have to live our life like the one who we love. And if our life does not change because of who we love, then we might not really love Jesus. I mean, for all of you that are in the sacrament of holy matrimony, I mean, your whole life after getting married was a give and take of sorts, right? I mean, you did change. Hopefully you're not the same person you were when you were a bachelor or bachelorette before you met the love of your life. You've made changes to be with the one that you love. You've made sacrifices. If you've been blessed to have children, you've made sacrifices for them as well. You've been growing and changing because of the people that you love. The same is true in our faith life. If we really love Jesus, then our lives are going to change in very radical and drastic ways. In ways that the world outside these sacred walls thinks is dumb and a waste of time. Because to love Jesus looks like the cross.